All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast for another exciting episode of this year's summer series. And today we are talking to a guest who recovered from a $160,000 loss on their first property, Ben, and how they recovered from the debt spiral that was a part of that. What else do we cover, Ben?
Well, this is a financial maturing story, Bryce, where also he became a super couple, where 1 + 1 equaled 11 on this financial transformation story.
Financial super couple. We've got to learn all about that, folks. Let's rip into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast, Ben, and welcome back to you. We are well and truly into the new year, second week of the new year. How are you, mate?
I am well, mate, and I'm excited about today's story because it is another reminder in terms of the different pathways in which we travel in life and what are some of the important things to us in the different decades of the life that we're in and how we grow up and mature around those types of journeys that we go on.
Well said, Ben. Very well said. I think it's a great story of not only someone who's gone and realised their poor money habits of the past, but what it looks like to course correct. And also when you get someone to do life with, Ben, who's on the same page as you, how much easier it is. So it's a really awesome tale around that. But
now, Bryce, before we get there, the response to your pending sabbatical has been super strong, and we are excited by the feedback. There's also been some, what? No, how's this happening? What's going on? So we understand all of that to be true, and we're all in the same boat, but we understand you've got some itches to scratch. So that's what's going to be happening over the next 12 months. And remember, it's not until February. And so please, for the rest of the community who is just learning that Bryce is basically going to take 12 months off, then we want you to write into us through or make a recording through SpeakPipe in terms of that. So you can share with us the journey that Bryce has been on. And I wanted to hit that at the start of the show, Bryce, because the response has been really as it should have been. I mean, you're amazing. And so it's definitely going to be a big change that's happening after 11 years. So please get all of those bits of great feedback right into us, do whatever to recognise Bryce. And I know he's going to say, I don't want to. We're going to move on and we're going to get into the show, and we'll pick it up at the end of the show with some other announcements that I've also got as part of our housekeeping. But Bryce, tell us all about Steve and what we're going to get ourselves into.
Thank you, mate. Yes, no, we had a wonderful conversation with Steve. He's a TPC listener. He's someone that all of our community can very much learn from. Let's get to the interview that you and I recently had with Steve Moorr. All right, Ben, we've got a very special guest today on this episode of the Summer Series. We are talking with a Property Couch listener. His name is Steve Moorr. Welcome to the Property Couch, Steve.
Thanks, guys. Great to join you.
Lovely to chat with you. And you're a West Coast supporter, so we won't go there for 2018.
Move on.
As much as we'd love to. But hey, listen, you're here to share your story. And your story is in the lane of a few setbacks and how you've course corrected and got your portfolio back on track. So we're excited to see how that unfolds. But what's always helpful in these conversations, Steve, is to try and understand some of those early experiences around money. So did you have conversations and what were your foundational experiences around money when you were growing up?
Yeah, so I guess for me, raised with mum and dad and had a brother, and not a lot of conversation around the dinner table in terms of finance. So dad had a few health issues with back reconstructions and bits and pieces like that. So he was working part-time. So we knew that money wasn't endless in our household, but we lived a really good, strong quality life. but we weren't really having those round the table conversations about how money was made, how we were spending money, and what we were looking at doing. So, not a large amount of conversations in that space, but I still remember as a young kid kind of going up to the ATM before food shopping and having a peek at the balance over the top of Dad's shoulder. But other than that, not much else going on in that space.
So, Steve, when you're coming into adolescence then and you're sort of, potentially any part-time jobs and when, did you have any sort of passbooks or any way in which you could save money? Were you getting a little bit of pocket money here and there?
Yeah, I was part of that horrible Dolomite scheme back in the 90s. So we had our Dolomite money that we used to save up for, and I was part of the 88 baby crew. So I got my bicentennial $50 from the Queen. So we had some of that kind of money that was around. But other than that, I worked a part-time job from probably 16 onwards when I was at school, working up Big W up the local road from our place and just working some night shifts up there, trying to put a little bit away. But again, it was when I was 16, 17, it was mostly school focused. And then, that little bit of money that I was making on the side, not really, being given the license to spend. It was more saved at that period of time from the parental influence on that side.
So you were pretty disciplined, you think, in terms of that sort of initial saving? Like it just, you weren't interested in the next fad. You didn't even have the best BMX bike or anything like that. You were sort of more on the line of building up a bit of a savings buffer. Yeah,
definitely. Mum and Dad were very focused on having that little bit of cushion that you're doing that bit of part-time work and spend a little bit, but most of it was going into savings. I actually don't even think I had a bank card for the first bank account I had when I was at Big Dub, so I wasn't able to just go down and get cash. And that obviously saved you from, just down the shop to grab that.
Any temptation.
I used to go to Trinity in the city, so I used to catch the bus and bits and pieces like that. So it would have been pretty easy to load up at the bus port with $10 worth of lollies on the bus home, like some of my mates were doing. So I think it was a savvy financial decision from the parents to not give the bank card on that one. And then, just worked a couple of shifts there on the weekend and before I started uni, and then that kind of where it got a bit out of control from that point onwards.
Oh, okay.
Tell us more. How did it get out of control?
Oh, I think obviously I had some mates that were in trade. So obviously trades in WA, making some good coin up on the mines. We were riding mining booms in that stage. So I had mates who would love to come off swing and head out to the casino, have a few beers and stuff like that. And I was doing my undergraduate and still wanting to be able to live that lifestyle. So I was working practically full time at Big W at that stage as well. And just probably the cash inflow to cash outflow wasn't marrying up with what the ideology or values of what I was looking at doing probably in the long term, but I was living more in the moment with less of a long-term view in that space.
Now you mentioned also, Steve, that you were sort of doing economics and comm law. So you're obviously, so numbers naturally were a thing for you. I mean, you didn't go down the science path. You went down the sort of commerce route. So were you not? Did you have an inkling that this wasn't great, but you were just sort of putting your head in the sand, or was it more of I didn't even think about it, I just sort of live for the now?
No, you nailed it right on the head there, Ben. It was that's a future Stephen issue, and I'll just live in the moment in that one. So I remember
future Stephen.
Future Stephen had to deal with that issue. Future Stephen had a few issues over the way. I unfortunately had a car accident in Dad's car when I was 18, just got my license. So that took a bit of a hit on the savings there in terms of paying the excess for getting that car sorted out, but then needed to borrow a bit of, borrow to get a new car to be able to get around to uni and stuff like that. So Dad kind of went guarantor on that one, but I was still paying that loan off whilst also trying to live this lifestyle as well. So that debt cycle started relatively young at that 18, 19 period, and then started running away from me for a period of time there as well.
So can I double click on that as well? Because there's also a bad relationship experience that also happened around that time based on the notes we've got here. And so was that relationship bad in the sense that you were looking to impress your partner and that was where all the money was going, or was it more of you just wanted to have an active life, and that was just part of that active life?
Yeah, it was probably a bit of both, mate. So I think definitely active life, but I think I moved into full-time work before she had. So I was naturally making more coin, and there was a want to get out and about and go for dinners and impress in that kind of space. And I was definitely footing the bill for a large amount of that kind of space. That relationship ended, and I kind of went, I need to blow this one up a little bit and go do my travel and all that kind of stuff without the probably the want to save up ahead of time for that, because that would have taken more time than I was willing to wait. So I foolishly went and got a personal loan to be able to go do that travel. So, and then that sunk it right into a poor space from that point onwards. So it was quite a large sizable amount in terms of the personal loan. I was able to travel for 4 months off it. So came back with a bit of debt, and I was basically credit cards, debt, in bad position when I got back from that trip, and almost pay cycle to pay cycle, just paying that up. And then the banker mum and dad had to come in and help us out in that one, because I was very fortunate that I was in that position that they could help. There was good Australian parents giving the old tongue lashing on the way through on that one as well. So there was a tight leash after that point, but definitely was saved by the banker mum and dad in that space to be able to course correct and then get onto the course that we're trying to move into now, which is good.
Was the holiday post-uni or during uni?
Post. So just post. So, yeah, I think it was 22 when I was away. So, but yeah, there was no expenses saved, and went all out. But I like to think that potentially it saved me a divorce in some ways in that space, but also on the other side of things, I've met some lifelong friends who I still travel 2 times a year over to Vic to go see through Kentucky trips and stuff like that. So the life experience side, great. The financial discipline, less than desirable on that space, and great learning, especially for my kids.
Yeah, sorry, you said you saved from a potential divorce. You were single at the time. What does that mean? It just stops the itch now. We did get back together before I went on the trip as well. So I think, we got back together, and in hindsight, rather foolishly, but there was a little bit of loneliness there. So I went, get back together, and then came back from the trip and went, this isn't to me. It's not a healthy relationship, and went down a different pathway from that point with onwards. Gotcha.
I really appreciate the honesty here, Stephen, because the reality is that there's a lot of people who are looking to find themselves in their early 20s. They're still forming their maturity around how the world works and how relationships works and that type of thing, and the pressure of peer group activities and those types of things. So I think sharing this story, this part of the story, to your point, there's trade-offs. There's the good parts of the story, which is the experiences and that, but there's also the alternative part of that story, which is how much it set you back and what you had to do off the back of that. So I think the message here, and I just want to finish off this sort of growing up sort of story piece. Your brother, did he follow a similar path to you? Was he more disciplined, or was he live for the now type as well?
No, he was the opposite. He's an accountant by trade, so a bit of pies fishes, you know what? And so he is very good with ins and outs. And so him and his wife now, they did 2 years in Canada, but they did it once they were married and purchased their home and done it the other way around. So they more financially responsible.
They got the foundations right before they potentially moved on, and that's allowed them to accelerate that. And obviously, the power of compound and this over time is going to mean if we fast forward 10 or 15 years. So good luck, congratulations to them. Let's put the focus back with yourself. So. Yep. Good on your parents for obviously giving you a cheaper form of funds to pay off their debt, keeping on a tight leash to make sure that you get back on your feet. Of course, your studies have yielded you income a healthy income. That's part of that. So let's move the conversation forward where we're now talking about what's the next big step, and this is life's journey, right? Where it was the next step property. What did that look like?
Yeah, so after we got everything sorted in that place, I met my now lovely wife, and just prior to that, I'd unfortunately, in retrospect, made the decision to buy an apartment in CBD here in Perth. So pretty much the 4 quadrants you guys go through, I went the complete opposite way in terms of purchasing that property. It's 46 square metres, so I couldn't even really get a loan for it initially. That should have been the first red flag, but I was dead set keen about living in the city and enjoying that lifestyle again. But yeah, we ended up having that investment. Well, once I got with my wife, we ended up reshaping in that space. So we rented that place out until we sold it, and unfortunately made quite a large loss on that one. And then we've purchased our principal place of residence now, which is where the green shoot started.
All right. So I want to get to green shoots, but let's get some
Keep
data.
going on that
What
one.
did we roughly pay for was it off the plan, or was it brand new, or was it existing?
No, it wasn't off the plan. So I bought it off the original owner who bought it off the plan, and probably should have been another red flag for me when I purchased that one. So she bought it for 400. I bought it for 320. So it already lost 80K in the 2 years since being given the cutting of the ribbon. And then so I took it over. I lived in it for 6 months, and then me and my now wife moved in together with her 2 kids from a previous relationship. So that we started renting that out, and then when we bought our place now, we sold the apartment and we lost another 80K on that. So it went down to 240 by that.
You sold it for 240?
240. Yeah. So this is right when Perth was probably at the bottom, but I think we identified the other thing that was happening in that space was the builder had gone into administration. It was a 300 apartment building, and all 300 bathrooms had to be redone because the waterproofing hadn't been correctly done to standard, and they'd actually the off pipes out of the building rather than facing away from the building were facing towards the balconies. So the balconies were flooding as well. Any time in the rarity of Perth winter we had some rain, it would flood basically most of the building out as it was happening. So strata fees went from something like 3K to 6.5K in a year, pretty much, because that's a self-fund.
So the insurance
bathroom
didn't cover it, so you had to raise a special levy.
Yeah. So special levy. Yeah. So when we left, they'd done 80 of 300 odd apartments. So who knows what else is happening in that building these days? But we saw the fire and tried to run away.
Who was buying it?
An investor who just saw it cheap and was going to rent it out, I think. So
love the yield story. Bang.
Yeah,
without doing a decent enough due diligence. All right. So
exactly, because the rental price was really good.
I think we should lean into a couple of the lessons. First one is one of the reasons why we don't do off the plan, Ben, is that story was from 400 to 320 to 240, right?
Yeah.
So if that's just another reminder to those people who have been listening to us for a long time while we've been saying don't buy off the plan. For those who have been listening to us for a short time, there's a cautionary tale. And the second thing is, Ben, we've got this rough rule of thumb that you should buy a property that banks like, right? And so Stephen said then the banks wouldn't give me a loan, but I was determined because I wanted to buy it. But under 50 square metres or 46 square metres, that is something that banks generally don't like. So within this is clearly not a wonderful story for Steve, but part of it is to share the message with the community, right? Make sure you buy a property that the banks like, and make sure it's over 50 square metres as a minimum, and just work through that the first purchaser, the second purchaser, now the third purchaser paid $160,000 less than the very first purchaser paid off the plan. So.
And Steve, you're talking in there about tax refunds. How much did that play into your decision making around buying it in the first place?
Yeah, quite a lot. So I did some post-grad studies, and they were aligned to my work. So I got some very handy tax refunds in a couple of years retrospectively, and that was basically the deposit. So it was again I was in my mid-20s by then. I hadn't met anyone. I was kind of renting off a friend, and they were kind of moving back from interstate and wanted the house back. And I kind of went, I need to make a decision here to put a roof over my head and go CBD, because I work in the CBD and my life goals in the CBD, and that's just grab an apartment because I'm a single man who would enjoy an apartment lifestyle without the long-term financial thoughts of what that would do for me in the long run. So good lesson learned to the community there, and that's why I was keen to talk up at the summer series.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
We appreciate you doing. Hey, you met your wife in 2016. You've obviously got this apartment, but did you have some bad debt at that time as well?
Yeah, so we 10K of some credit card debt as well, which was just kind of partly had kind of just built up over time in terms of some of the expenses that were as part of getting the new house, furnishing it, all those kind of bits and pieces. So that was just kind of had all added up in that space as well. And when I met my wife, she very rightly so was nervous in that space. She'd been debt-free basically her whole life, and she looked at that kind of canvas and went, "Hey, I'm really keen on you, but we need to sort this out." So it was the kick up the bum I needed in that space.
She's raising 2 kids as well
from
her previous relationship. So she's obviously a fine woman and a very smart person, but also quite disciplined in the sense that she can, manage to run a household budget with two children, right?
So she was still living with her mum at that stage. So rent and the like wasn't part of that. But then she was still at work with the youngest one. So we were able to balance that in that space. And as I kind of put in the notes, we moved in with my mother-in-law, now mother-in-law, to kind of take a bit of that financial pressure off for a period of time. So, and then, rented that out. And then we made the decision to buy our place together and move in as a family. And then we've added another one on top of that. So we've got a nice family home with PPR, and that's the happy times coming now.
There was something that you did to help with that credit card debt. You cashed out something with your employment.
So I was a little bit of a fortunate time. I'd worked 7 years in state government, so long service leave came up. So I went, let's cash that out, and took a lump sum payment on that one, and paid off all the debt in terms of the bad debt, credit card debt. Would have been nice to be able to pay off the apartment, but couldn't do that.
So tell us about the conversation that you're having with your wife, right? Her normal is no debt. You're bringing in this other paradigm and this other, let's call it the baggage that was coming. She told you to pull your head in, I think it was what you said before. I'm sorry if I misquoted, but what did those conversations look like? How did you, because clearly she saw you as a wonderful human, but that was clearly something that was of concern. How did you navigate those conversations, and what did that look like?
I think for me there was a large amount of self-awareness that I was in a hole that I needed to get out of as well. So I think, as I think we said at the beginning of the convo, future Stephen's issue, but I think I'd stuck my head in the sand for a long period of time, and like an emu, my ass was sticking out for a long period of time, and I needed that bit of a kick to go, hey, this is what I value in life, is that relationship and the direction I wanted to go with my wife in that space and the family. So I needed to change my habits and behaviours to be able to align with that values and go down the other direction that we were wanting to do. So, really important change and milestone in my life to be able to move down that direction and into our future together.
What did it take? What did you have to do to reassure your wife that, okay, what you just said, but she probably needed some evidence or some reassurance or something to suggest that was going to change?
I think the cashing out of the long service leave was the demonstration of the seriousness of that stage. So that wiped all of the credit card and the bad debt, and then we just had the property that we could manage together. We actually, when we first got together, thought we were still quite naive in our property understanding. So we thought, property grows over time. We'll keep that one. It'll fund the kids' education as we go through, and then we'll go buy our PPR. And then as bathrooms were leaking, balconies were flooding, we went, we need to get away from this thing and kind of grow. So didn't all happen at the same time, but yeah, we thought we'd keep that side apartment. The paying off the debt was the confidence boost. She went, yep. And then we put into structure a very spreadsheet orientated kind of budgeting method, went back to, accounting 101 almost, debits, credits, and went down that space. And that's how we, over time, started our money journey. So we went through Barefoot, and then we went through some other programs as we went so that we could start learning how to best use our money and best have it working for us on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about, there is the story of the spreadsheet, but there is, there's different money management systems out there, right? So there's, tracking debits and credits, I think, is the fabulous start. And then getting a sense of what's essential and discretionary as is also part of that story. So who initiated the spreadsheet? Was that yourself, Steve? Or
that was me, yeah. Leaning back into my commerce background, which I've now very much moved away from, went back into the spreadsheet. And I think like anything in the world, once you go to the left, you overcorrect to the right generally when you try and implement a system. So we went right into governance mode. We had every transaction in our joint accounts was logged into the spreadsheet. We were tracking everything, and it created that security space in terms of, obviously, especially for my wife, where I'd been in debt previously, it gave her the confidence that we were actually spending in line with our incomes coming in, in that space. And then as time evolved, we definitely had those conversations. We need to make this simpler. This is taking the amount of time and effort and the cost per hour that I was spending on this beautiful spreadsheet. I was trying to make it as simple as possible and putting my graphs in and all this kind of stuff. And I went, there's got to be a simpler way to do this thing.
It's not an overcorrection if it gives signals and the strength of those signals. Like, how did it make you feel when you could see where all your money was going? Like, because obviously there is your point. Your effort to result is very high when you've got to do it manually. But what insights and from those insights, what were the learnings that you took out of managing your money so richly at that level?
That some of our discretionary spending wasn't in line with our overall goals and values in life. There was a few too many transactions at Optus watching the Eagles, having a few too many beers at the footy, and there was discretionary spends on the side that you kind of go, am I going to remember those spends in 5, 10, 15 years time, or could we be redirecting that to have better effort elsewhere? So that then evolved that conversation into, well, if we're going to spend that money elsewhere.
Did you have a savings target and then actual versus budgeted? How did that sort of play out?
Yeah, so initially we were tracking debits, credits, then we moved into targets of, I think we were trying to save 10 to 15%. Then we moved into let's try and put as much on our mortgage as possible. We had a diagram on the back of the bedroom door as we were trying to pay off as much of the mortgage as we could. And then that's when we started getting into the space, your kind of area, and some other areas where we started looking at, is that the best way that we can be spending our money and directing it towards getting better outcomes for our family.
But it's a learning journey, and I love the fact that so you're getting educated, you're building that knowledge up, then you're getting to level 2, and then you're looking and exploring for level 3. So it's a great story.
I think also for us, it really was aligned with a young family as well. So we were in young kids, you're in the wars day to day kind of thing, just kind of who's going to sleep, who's waking up in the middle of the night. So I think really our journey can be really staged along with our children's life journey.
Yeah.
So my oldest stepdaughter, she got diagnosed with a cognitive disability. So we went down the NDIS pathways and that. So we spent a lot of time there, and then the spreadsheet was our safety there. And then we had the birth of our youngest. So then we had a young child. So again, we couldn't really progress in that space. And then now she's 6 now, but when she hit 4, that was when the world kind of felt like it was reopening again, and we could use that emotional and mental capital to be able to start investing in ourselves and our family's future as well.
Yeah. Mm. How did that grind feel? Because that sounds like there was a bit of a grind there. Did you hang tough? Was there, could you see the light at the end of the tunnel? Was there a moment that, or you're just in survival mode and you're not thinking forward?
Yeah, I think from a financial point of view, I think we were probably just bunkered down. I think
Yep.
We're sitting there and it's the first day of the Boxing Day test and there's bouncer barrages coming down us, or maybe Optus with the bouncy at wicket. And we're just trying to get through till that ball gets a little bit duller and we can start making some runs. So I think, and then especially in the first couple of years of our youngest, and then still balancing the older two in schools and we move schools and all those kind of bits and pieces, trying to get the best outcomes for them. And now we're on this nice solid foundation. We've built the foundation and we can grow from that.
It feels like the story is like really cathartic too, Steve, because you kind of you know, you're sharing some really vulnerable stuff with us, but it's almost like you're just pragmatic about, oh yeah, that happened, and because you've obviously put a lot of head miles into this, and you've obviously spent a lot of energy and effort, diagrams on the back of the door, spreadsheets into the numbers, the reflections, and so clearly, you know, if your wife was concerned about getting together, like I'd imagine if we're chatting with her now, she'd be going, well, you know, that was not founded because, like, you've just got this gazelle-like, you know, focus on it, but just this almost dismissiveness of some of the human emotion that you would have been experiencing at the time, and just the reflections that come from it.
Yeah, definitely my personality type is, okay, well, that's happened. Let's keep moving. Getting very into my HR world now, but I'm a 7-3 on the print profile, so it means that I'm very strategic. I'll look across the weeds and just cut the corners and, you know, these things that happen. Okay, what's the best circumstance that we can have moving forward? So the pitch does always fall when I relive the memories at times, but if I get stuck in those emotions, it's not really helping. As long as I learn the lesson and move it forward, that's the most important part for me, that we're not making the same mistakes again.
That's taking action. That's taking action. So let's step through those taking actions parts. You know, once you've got your spreadsheets and that type of thing, you're then looking for systems. You came across a podcast called Cashflow Co., which was the great, you know, Terry and Ryan who are running that story. And so tell us what you learned from that, and then you stumble across Bryce.
Yeah. So I had a mate of mine in Melbourne. I was having beers before we were going to watch a Collingwood game, Ben. So
Hello.
Did you get the chocolates that day, or did?
I think Collingwood actually beat Geelong that day. It was a couple of years ago at the G. It was a good game.
Okay, right. So it wasn't a.
So I'm a bit worried about Steve, his budget at the moment, Ben, because there sounds like there's a common thread of sport and beers, right? But the only way that he can get through the West Coast Eagles at the moment is probably a few extra beers, right? So that could be affecting his budget.
Yeah, and a couple of ports just reflecting across the premiership cabinet, mate, when I look at the Dockers one as well. I'll let you go to the second one. I'll let the first one go through. I won't go to the second one. But no, yeah. So we're having beers over in Melbourne. He just said, mate, there's this podcast. Have a listen to the podcast. Terry and Ryan do a great job over there on their pod. And we jumped on their mentorship, which they do a lot of learnings in terms of how to kind of structure. They do a great job, and really enjoyed their program. As part of that program, as you said, doing the work. So I still remember being at the gym on the bike, and I'm screenshotting stuff out of their course while I'm watching it, while I'm working out, and I'm sending it to Santina going, God, look at this graph. This is what's going to happen to our money in this time period. And, you know, the investment of if you do 100K in the first year and what it means in year 15 and all this kind of stuff. So we got really excited in that space. And then, so we went through with them, and we used a bit of the spare capital in our place to invest in some shares, which was kind of what their kind of drift was going down. And then, our world changed in probably December 23. They did a bit of a summer series-like event for themselves where they did a debt series, and Bryce came on as part of that and did a pod, and I think probably the line, I was walking the dog at the time, I still remember it, just up at local, and I think the line that probably got me was that you had no discrepancy between shares and property for yourself, and then it's actually just your ability to have the greater level of capital investment in that space to see the growth over time. And I went, okay, I'm going to go look into these guys, and then so binged the Property Couch podcast. So definitely got through a large number of your 500 odd episodes there, and listened to that over time, and lived the emotions of football seasons past as I kind of went through in the beginning of the pod, which was something I definitely attached to as well. So it made walking the dog more enjoyable in that space. And then, we were kind of getting to the end of the mentorship with Cashflow guys and been doing their stuff. And we went, hey, one thing that we really learned from them was surrounding yourselves with the best experts and having that inner team. So I'm really big on that in my professional life as well. As I don't need to be an expert of everything. I just need to be in the mastery of my space and then bring the masters around the table to make sure that we've got the best kind of efforts to be able to direct our future. So by listening to the pod with Property Couch, we definitely identified Empower having kind of that 5-edged design so that we could go down with the planning, the mortgage, the buyer's agent, our insurance super, and then now our accounting as well. So it's all in one, and that's how we got involved with your guys.
So you're learning about property finance and money management through the Property Couch, and thanks for sort of going on that journey with us. You probably think we're besties, and we are, because at the end of the day, you get to hear hundreds of hours. So if you also had a little bit of insomnia, hopefully we've helped with that as well in terms of falling asleep. But you decide that property might be a vehicle for you off the back of what Bryce says around controlling a higher amount of asset, and that asset is appreciating over time. But you also have done the homework now on cash flow and money management, so you've sort of mastered that piece. So you then sort of reach out and then think, all right, well, let's get a property plan. How did that sort of come about?
Yeah, so we just reached out through the webpage, organised to catch up, and next minute we're in our conversation with Sarah, our planner, who was absolutely brilliant and guided us through. And I think obviously in preparation, I've been listening to some of the pods, especially looking at the planning ones, and I really love that Google Maps analogy in terms of, we want to go from point A to point B, but the way we go there's a whole different range in that space. So as you've heard through the combo, I still want to live life as we go through our journey. So I still want to be able to go to Footy or go overseas and do all these life trips, like we're going to Europe in 2027 with the kids and all these kind of things that we want on our plan. So Sarah was fantastic in making sure that was all accounted for within our plans and how we fit our property purchases into that plan and the budgets that we're kind of building. And then we already had started using Moorr at that stage. So she had some data, and then we were able to move that into our plans. And then, so the planning stage was really important for us. And we went back and forth on that for about a month, which was really good. And, she did a fantastic job in there. And then once we kind of consolidated and set on that, she then opened up the rest of the door to the Empower Wealth Network for us, which was fantastic.
And how did you, going through that process, how did you get on the same page with you and your partner around the priorities? Because that's in terms of big rocks in the jar and what's important to you. Did you have immediate alignment, or was there some negotiations around priorities?
Yeah, no, there was definitely a few long lunches, discussions in terms of what we wanted to do and where we wanted to sit, and even as we're getting into that planning stage, where we wanted our property to be. So Santina being a very WA homebody, she was very WA focused. I, through the pod, had been more, the Borderless investor kind of line. So we did so much conversation and education between the two of us, so that when we had an initial discussion with Sarah, and she kind of guided us through where we could be going with our Google Maps kind of A, B, C route. And then me and Santina really aligned on where we wanted to go as a couple. So we made those kind of decisions that at 55, we want to start scaling down to part-time work. Ideally, if we can financially, 60 retirement, so that we can travel, do the world, all those kind of spaces. But we've made sure that we've planned in our property plan. We've got, we said 2027 Europe. We're going to make sure we get to the Olympics in 2032 as a couple, all those kind of things. So those big rocks that we wanted in the jar as part of our journey, we made sure that as part of that planning process they were in there. And then some of the less big rocks in my space, but bigger in Santina's space, like a new oven or something like that, which our oven carked it just before we did our plan. And we got an air fryer, and I think the air fryer does everything I need it to do, but she, being an amazing Italian cook, wants an oven, and I'm going, nah, you don't need that in the big rock jar. And she's going, no, we need an oven. So in the plan, we'll get a new oven and all those kind of things. So we made some really strong strategic decisions as we talked through our future and what we're wanting in that space. And we've committed that every probably 3 to 5 years we'll relook at that plan because life changes as we do as well. So
yeah.
Can you talk to that, Steve, for our audience? Because the perception that the plan is about what properties to buy is probably shortchanging it, because it's actually, if we go back to the essence of what the plan is, it's actually lifestyle by design. What do you want? Do you want an oven? Do you want to drink beers at the footy? Do you want to go to Europe in 27? Like all that sort of and then the property just becomes the vehicle at the end. So can you talk to that specifically about how you probably go into the plan thinking it's about buying properties, and then you leave going, oh gosh, it's way more than that.
Yeah. And so I remember rocking out with Sarah and I was thinking, I'll put in my budget, my annual budget, she'll just times it by 40 and tell me which year we'll slot our properties in, and we'll just walk out of there and I'll go buy some property. And then she's going, so what do you guys want? What do you guys want from life? And I was like, Jesus, this got a bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. And we're talking about our world plan. So it's an incredibly exciting conversation as well, because with your partner, you're sitting there going, how do we want to live the rest of our life? Like, we're talking at like the 55 going to part-time could be so that we're available, that if our kids have had kids, we can be the pick up from school for our grandkids and stuff like that. Like, I was 36 years old thinking about what I'm going to do with my grandkids in 30 years. Like, it's pretty wild kind of stuff in that space. But then I think for me, the renewal and refreshment every 3 to 5 years is really important as well, because if you told me 3 to 5 years ago we'd be on this path now, I would have told you you'd lost your mind. So we were dead set that we're paying our full mortgage off, and then we'd figure out what we were going to invest in. And then now 3 years later, we've already purchased one, purchase another one in 2032, and then we'll consolidate our super, and life will be good on the other side based on our modelling. It gives us our confidence that we're moving in the right direction. It's our safety blanket, but also our motivation point at the same time. So from a motivation point of view, it's really important as well, because she discussed salaries in work and the like. So that can obviously grow over time, and that sets, I get to my performance reviews and stuff like that, and I go back to the plan and go, well, what did I say I'd do at this stage? Okay, this is where we're basing our conversation, because I'm going, hey, if you don't come to the party, my plan's off. I need to go figure out what's going on in the plan. So it's a good guiding star for us as well, after we've had some pretty significant conversations.
That's cool. And Steve, in terms
Very
of
cool.
big rocks in the jar around the principal home, in terms of, do you feel like you are comfortable in your current home as your forever home?
Yeah, no. So we actually explored that as part of the property plan as well, because I had, prior to the plan, I had in my head that I was going to go live in Cottesloe and walk down the hill to the beach every day and do all those kind of things. And then Sarah did some fantastic projections on what Cottesloe property price will be in 20 years' time once the kids grow up and move out. And I went, I can just drive from Eden Hill to the beach to 25-minute drive. It'll be okay. It was a good effort to go through that one. But, we're where we are. We're in a great neighbourhood, and sometimes I come into the house and give the house a bit of a hug as I walk through, because of the fantastic capital growth it's had recently in property prices. It's just
get on your lawn and just give yourself a little bit of rub on the lawn, because that land is done
no angel stuff.
Tell us what you paid for the house, Steve, and then what it's estimated to be worth at the moment.
Yeah, so we paid $453 in 2017, so pre-COVID, and then we literally just did our 12-month review on the mortgage with your guys, and I think it was $825 now. So that's 8 years later. So
can't go broke making a profit.
No, it's happy day.
Tax-free profit too for the moment. Using that equity has become really important for you, Stephen. Like, that's been the catalyst to obviously get you into this, recent investment property. So tell us about the first investment property that you've bought under the plan.
Yeah, so we purchased a 4x1 out in the west of Victoria, which again we thought we'd never do, and went through a really strong process through the buyer's agency team. So I think for me, again, as part of our planning, had those conversations with Santina. We've got a property, we can kind of go buy a property, can't we? And I was like, but we bought a good home because we were invested in that. And I really take that message from you guys. Like, when we're buying for a property, you know what we want, but you don't know as much what everyone else is looking for. And we want to make sure that we've got an investment that is going to assist our family into the future. So went with the buyer's agency team, and Mitch, you know, the only thing about Mitch is that he's a St Kilda supporter. And once I got through those problems with him, and it helped that we beat them this year as well, the only win we did have this year. I did send him a cheeky text after that one. But he did a brilliant job walking us through that process. So I just thought, you know, your buyer's agency, it would just be call us. He'd go, yeah, I've got a list of 10 properties, which one you want? And then we'd go do that. And it was the complete opposite experience in that space. So that was Mitch. He understood he obviously had the plan and what our kind of script of what we were looking at doing. He spent a lot of time walking both myself and Santina through the journey of finding the right areas. He identified the areas that we kind of had the 10 areas that we were looking at across Vic, and we were actually looking down Geelong way. So as well to determine whether there's potentially something we wanted to look at in that space, and Mitch guided us through that kind of journey there. I think also for Santina, a really important part of Mitch in that journey as well was, as I said earlier, she'd never had debt. We had debt for our house, but then to get debt for an investment property, like the amount of debt we're carrying at the moment is higher than we've ever had before as we've gone into that space. So the confidence of Mitch bringing to that table of, hey, if you told us 5 years ago we were going to buy a property, never see it, and in person, and then purchase this property on the other side of the country, you wouldn't have got through the front door. So Mitch was so integral from that heart piece to get us over the line there as well. Sorry, Bryce.
Can you talk to us about that? I tried to catch your wife's name a couple of times. You mentioned, is it Santina?
Santina, yeah.
Santina. So talk us through the conversation with Santina around, you remember how you said you only wanted to invest in Perth, and you remember how I said I've been listening to these two dudes who said we should be borderless? Like, you obviously won that battle, but can you well, maybe that's not the right word. That's not the right phrasing. But you obviously were persuasive. Can you talk to us around what those conversations were like in the lead up to that?
Yeah, I give Santina huge credit on this one. She's got an open mind, so she's always willing to learn and understand. So when I was able to, I like to take that off. Sometimes the best way to learn yourself is to actually explain it to someone else as well. So I think listening to the pod then explaining to Santina the benefit of borderless investing and how we can diversify our investments by being borderless, and making sure we're not going also very much on the WA point of view. We've seen when FIFO moves out of our great state for periods of time, we see property drops and stuff like that. So protecting ourselves from those kind of economic factors and the like. So, and I think for Santina, most importantly, it was as we've met the people through the people connection from Empower Wealth as well. So connected very well with Sarah, and Sarah gave us that confidence that our financial modelling was sound and strong to be able to get into this position. And then when we worked with Mitch, it was, we're actually making this investment for the best interest of our family and kind of guiding down that path. So my profession now is change management. So I guide people through people change on a daily basis. So maybe that had part to do with it. But I think for Santina, definitely from an awareness point of view, I just had to create that awareness that there is the rest of the country that we can invest in, creating the desire that what's in it for us is it's that protection piece. And then from there, she was ready to go with kind of, once we had that knowledge and the ability piece through Sarah and the modelling and Mitch and his kind of work that he did to create that real confidence that it was a well-researched piece of work, we were ready to jump right in.
Mate, I think the superpower you've got is this connection that you have together, and the conversations you have. And from all the the years that Ben and I have been doing it, that is when couples do. I'm using my hands here for Ben for an audio, but when couples sort of diverge away, that's the challenge. But the ones who have that sort of coming together of the minds and collaboration and the discussions, and use it as a point of strength in the relationship, we can clearly see that from the conversations that you're having, Steve. And
Santina's immense in the yin to the yang to me as well. So I'll run away with an idea if I was by myself, whereas she just asks the very strategic, logical questions that brings it back into realm, and then we work through that information together. Yeah. So it's very good in that space.
It's powerful. But you've set yourself a passive plan, Steve. So you've got a couple of properties, and combine it with your super, and you've got a very clear plan on what you're doing. But one of the things I think that for the benefit of the community as well is quite often because you it's a bit like do I want to go like you learn you learn in small increments early. But then, do you know you're a numbers guy? You know the Fibonacci sequence. You go 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. It gets bigger and bigger over time. That early growth is small increments. And what we find with property investors is when they do what you do, double down on the numbers, double down on where the money's going, making sure you spend less than you earn, making sure you learn the lessons of the past. Then you put in place your plan and plan, the trips to Europe. And once you go down the track, you can then, the world opens up to you to go, okay, I might stay passive or I might go active, and I might do other things that maybe accelerate, or I'm happy, or I might bring forward my retirement date, or we've been really great at overachieving on some of our goals. So I think the world is looking really, really bright for the both of you, given the just this fastidious focus, the nature of your personality that you described before, and the fact that you're just pragmatic and practical along the way. Can you talk a little bit about the fact what that looks like now, just to have a passive portfolio and a passive paradigm and a philosophy around that?
Yeah, so I think for us, property is a lot easier than we ever expected. So I think Ben talks a lot about the 10 hours per year. So that's been really enjoyable. Once we got through the initial hustle and bustle of getting the property on the books, it's been this great thing on the other side of the country. My last trip to Melbourne, I visited the property, but that was about the only interaction I had with the property in the last 12 months, which has been pretty fantastic in that space. And I think
not always as good as that, but
no,
that's a good start.
Yeah, I did get an email this morning. I did get an email this morning about the fence, so don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming, but it's all right. I think really the passive income journey for us is just making sure that incrementally we're building on our momentum down the hill and ensuring that, I think, as you said, spend less than what we earn, making sure that we're directing our money in the right spaces and going down that space.
Yeah. And so Stephen, thank you for sharing this story and how that makes, sounds like life is livable now and things are moving in the right direction for you. And my final question, of course, I know I'm going to ask you about Moorr. How has that helped in terms of, using that platform to keep checks and balances in place?
It's incredibly important, Ben. So I think we've spoken about the spreadsheet enough, but it's basically the spreadsheet on steroids, basically. So it gives us that financial security that we're able to continue to track the big expenses that we need to. It enables, so we're definitely not at our end state in terms of making sure we're spending less than we earn in the line. So we have overspent in medical and bits and pieces like that this year. So we're just starting up our budget for 2026 to make sure that it is reflecting what we want and making those kind of decisions. And I think that's what Moorr allows, data-driven decision making, that it kind of enables in a lot of spaces, and it takes the emotion out of it as well. And that's probably been one of the biggest experiences that we've had through working with Empower Wealth, is it takes a lot of the emotion out of such a highly emotional industry, and especially with the large investments. So I think that was probably our biggest takeaway from the buyer's agency journey, was it saved us 20K up front, basically straight away, from emotional decisions, because when we got into negotiations on the property that we went into, it was listed at 720. We went in at 680. They came back at 700, and I was almost like ready to sign the paper, jumping over the line. And Mitch is going, mate, save the weekend. He goes, they had rented furniture for their home opens, have been open for 14 weeks. They're feeling the thing more than us. Just leave the weekend. And I'm up every morning going, how we going? And Mitch is just cool as a cucumber. And then we signed it for 680, as he said we would. So that's what Moorr and working with Empower Wealth has enabled for us, is to take a lot of the emotion and that expertise base. It's been really important for us.
Oh, thank you for sharing that about our team, Steve. We appreciate that.
Super proud of them. Yep.
Hey, my final question for you is, it's kind of that sort of the floor is yours type of moment. Like we've asked you to come on and share an experience, and you've been generous and transparent and frank about some. There's a part of your history that I'm sure you don't enjoy talking about, but you did. So two final things for you. Why did you want to share the story? And is there anything we didn't ask you that you reckon we should have?
I think for me, why I want to share the journey is, I think, getting your story out into the community. Hopefully someone listens to this and goes, hey, I could be in my hole and feel pretty hopeless about turning it around, and hopefully you listen to a bit of how we've been able to do it, and you go, okay, step by step, we can get back on track with this one. So that's education for me is the key in getting messages out, and I'll do it for my kids now, but also I'm really keen on getting that message out into the community that we don't have to be perfect the whole time. You can make some shit decisions and turn it around and be able to get out the other side and live really fulfill lives, and especially in line with what you want as a values-driven kind of path in that space as well. And then I guess anything that we haven't touched on, I think probably just the one thing I think Empower Wealth and your team brings is that kind of consolidated service. I think with Moorr at its heart and everyone being in the one system, it's been this real seamless transition between all of our different services. I think previously when we purchased the principal place of residence, you got to have conversations with your mortgage broker separately to having conversations with this person and this person and this person. But through Empower Wealth, having Jake and the mortgage team, and then we had our Jane and the team doing insurance and all those kind of bits and pieces. It just was this really well-rounded kind of experience that we didn't have to re-explain the story. Everyone knew where our North Star was, and we were able to just guide it through each step, which, yes, we have come out the other side of very young children, but we're still quite time poor. We're professionals. We're wanting to do all different things in life. There's some idiots running a marathon on Sunday, so that's got training requirements and stuff like that. So those simplicities of having that consolidated service is so undervalued, in my opinion, because I think it just means that you get to the end post as deliberately as possible.
As I said, we're super proud of the team that we get to look after, and obviously they are an amazing group of professionals, but they are still the guys. Like at the end of the day, the hero is you and your beautiful wife, Santina, in terms of how you've been able to take action. And I think one of the things, in terms of giving you the floor, my final question to you is this, and that is, how did you cope with the slow turnaround as opposed to a quick turnaround? Because what you've been able to do hasn't taken 5 minutes. No. It's taken several years to sort of do that. So how did you stay true to this transformation?
Yeah, I think the end state being really clear is important in that, and also being forgiven for blemishes as you go along the pathway. So you're definitely not going to have a perfect pathway. You go, I'm going to change all my behaviours at once, and then it's just going to beautifully go down the line. So again, going back to my change world, that's the reinforcement piece of the change. It's, hey, we will naturally have a drop off at periods of time, but it's, have I built the systems and behaviours behind that to be able to pick them up and put it back into place so we're still on that upwards trajectory over time. So I think for us, having the end state really clear and then having the systems and processes around it so that we can't fall too low again has been the key.
Incredible. Hey,
beautiful.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, Steve. It's been a real sort of woe to win journey that you've taken us on, and I think the fact that you articulate and you've thought it through and you've had these conversations, I think our community's been the beneficiary of it. And I reckon you should send it to your mum and dad, because they gave you a tongue lashing on the bank of mum and dad early on. But now I think that they would be super proud of the maturity and the growth and the leadership and the mentorship that you can now provide to your family as well. So
and even your brother might give you a high five as well, right?
He is a doctor supporter, though. So we don't need to go down.
We always knew he was a smart one.
Exactly. But, hey, Steve, on behalf of all of us here on the Property Couch, yes, thanks for sharing your story here on the Summer Series.
No, thanks, guys, and thank you for all the amazing work you do in our community. It's really appreciated.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, mate, do you know what I loved about, and we highlighted it in the interview, but Steve was just so pragmatically frank about his flaws. It was like, it's where some people really clam up and don't want to talk about. He was like, oh yeah, this is just what it is. And I think there's something in that. You know, you and I have been trying to create a movement around talking about money with your loved ones. You know, we use the metaphor of the dinner table, but doesn't by the barbecue, in the car, wherever it takes us to have these conversations. But I think what Steve did really well then is just say, well, there was a time when I wasn't great at money. Now I am good at money, and I'm actually happy to tell you as much as possible about the fact that when I was rubbish at it, because I've got a pretty good story to tell now. And I think really it's admitting the problem before you can address the problem. And I think that was one of the big takeaways I got from that conversation.
But the other, I mean, I think if I can double click on what you just said, Bryce, it's not that he didn't know his way around spreadsheets. It's not that he didn't know, he's professional. He studied in that sort of area, right? So he understands and works in money and finance and all of those other areas through his general day-to-day life. So it's like he knew all that, but he was still behaving in a way that wasn't consistent with what he knew in that. So if it wasn't for his beautiful partner who came along and helped him straighten up and got a little bit of maturity in there, and I think, Bryce, you and I could probably reflect on that with our own beautiful partner.
Yeah. Well, they straighten us up very well. But Santina did a great job here with Steve, and but they are a financial power couple. Let's be real. Like they've got a North Star. They work in alignment. They know where their money's going. They play defense on their money really well, and now they've pivoted to offense as well, just to go, well, we're good at knowing where it goes. Let's put it to work now that we've trapped it. It's just a wonderful story.
It is. I mean, but there's also that, there's other connections here, and I think this has been, in the last few summer series that we've done, I've always talked about hard work and dedication and delayed gratification there, and then mindset, right, in terms of changing that. But what's happened in a couple of the examples that we've already shared throughout this summer series is a lot of purchasing mistakes. So this is another one where off the plan, right, in terms of and a loss that's been made off the back of that. And look, Steve had a safety net in his parents, so shout out to mum and dad who basically, helped him get back. But now he's also transformed from, and he's one of the lads, and we all love that. We all love our boys' trips and matehood that we obviously can sometimes create through our friendship groups. But instead of, Friday, Saturday nights was all about going out and potentially punting and doing, now he's running marathons, right? So there's been a financial transformation, but there's also been that physical and mental transformation. It's also been part of Steve's story. And so I just like the way he's got his priorities in his life. And don't get me wrong, those priorities when you're younger, I mean, your 20s are the years you experiment, you explore, you do all those things. But then life gets a little bit more serious. And, and he made the move. He made the pivot. Some don't. Some still live in their 20s, boyhood mindsets. He's matured enough to be able to move through that, and he's seeing that success. And what I've also seen in here, Bryce, is that he's got professional advice along the journey, and it was very complimentary to our business, and that's nice. We didn't ask for that, but it certainly is a story where, again, success leaves clues. He's a user of the Moorr platform. He's done a property plan. He now knows the pathway that he's on. He's made the invisible visible. Before that, maybe he couldn't be what he couldn't see, but he still had spreadsheets, but it still didn't help him in terms of what he was doing. So I just think it's a ripper story, and I'm glad Stephen came on the pod and shared, openly about the transformational journey that he's been on.
Only one thing wrong with that interview, Ben. We talked about West Coast Eagles too much, not enough about Freo Dockers. This will probably irritate him as he listens back because he would like a right of reply, but he who laughs lasts longer. So it's all about Freo here, Steve. West Coast who?
Well, mate, you've got
West
Mason
Coast who?
Cox now, right? So you got the big Coxie for
West Coast who? There we go. Wonderful conversation. And Ben, as we wrap it up, you've got a few little announcements that you want to make here.
Yeah, I think it's important that, again, we're still in hopefully we've still got this fresh 2026 energy. I've been putting the call out there around making sure you understood what you spent last year, get all that information inside Moorr, and then start to set up, because what we're talking about here is the surplus target for 2026. Now, we know that people like Stephen who use Moorr, who are going to go in there, put all of those transactions in there, use the AI. It's super smart. And so it should be able to allocate, as much as 80, maybe even 90% of those transactions. So that will basically allow you to get clear insight in terms of where your money's going. And that's what I wanted to make sure. Now, next week, I'll make sure we also talk about the property market. But a little teaser, if you have been active over the festive Christmas period and you've been watching the market, go back and have a look at some of those properties that have been on market for a reasonable period of time, because now, if they also didn't get their sale over the line by Christmas, the vendors could be even more relaxed about the property because they want to move on. So this is potentially when you can start putting in some low ball offers, even though we know technically the property market is pretty healthy at the moment.
Well said, Ben. And we'll have much more to say on the property market in February as well, which will be really important. But thank you again, Steve, for joining us on the show. Thank you, as always, Ben, for your contribution. And until next week.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
There you go, folks. See you next week.